everybody, today I'll be showing you how to make this super cute and easy cat hat, and it has these little side parts, string things on the side, and this is the hat. So let's get started. So the first material you're going to need is some medium worsted yarn for the edges and the string part of the hat. I'm using this brown yarn I have. You're also going to need another medium yarn for the base color of the hat, and I'm using this sage green yarn I have. Some scissors, a 4.5mm hook. This is what I like to use for this size yarn. You're also going to need some stitch markers, and I'm using some bobby pins I have. And last but not least, you're going to need a tapestry needle to weave in all your ends and also to sew your hat together. So let's get started. First thing you're going to do is make a slip knot and attach that to your hook. You're doing this with your base color yarn, and you're going to make a chain of 35 now, and this is interchangeable because basically this chain is across your forehead, and if you need a bigger size or smaller size, you can change that to whatever you need to. So now you're going to start your first row. You're going to yarn over and place your hook into that first chain there and pull up a loop, and then pull through all three loops, and then you're going to continue half double crocheting all the way down each chain, and you should have 34 stitches at the end of the row. And now I'm just finishing up my first row with those last few stitches and making sure I get that half double crochet in the last chain. And now I have my 34 half double crochets. My first row is done. I'm going to chain 2, turn my work, and half double crochet in each stitch, making sure I get that first stitch that I showed in the video, and continuing down the row until the end. And now I'm reaching my last few stitches, and I want to make sure I get that last stitch there and do a half double crochet. Now at the end of the row, we're going to chain 2 and turn your work. And this is what it should look like, and we're just going to continue this process and making sure you have 34 stitches in every row. And again, I'm just finishing off my row and making sure I get that last stitch there, doing a half double crochet. And this is what my rows look like, and we're going to chain 2 and turn your work. Now we're going to continue this process for rows 4 to 35, half double crocheting in every stitch, and making sure we have 34 stitches in every row. Okay, so I'm on my last row here, finishing up my last few stitches, and now I am going to chain 1 and pull up a loop so it doesn't undo. And this is what my 35 rows look like. Now we're going to be sewing down these sides, and this will be our hat part. So we're going to slip stitch our sides together because we still have our yarn attached. And you're going to put your hook through the first loop and then the loop in the back. And then you're going to just pull up the yarn and pull it through and then through again. And that's your first slip stitch. And you're just going to continue finding the holes on both edges of the yarn and just connecting them with slip stitches all the way down the edge so that your one seam of the hat is connected. So now I'm just finishing up my last few slip stitches, so one slip stitch and my last slip stitch, And this is what your hat should look like so far. And by the way, this is the inside of the hat. And now we're going to chain one and fasten off. So we're chaining one, getting our scissors and cutting a long enough string so that we can weave in our ends later. So I cut it, and now I'm just pulling up and tightening that knot. So now I have a string that I cut from my ball of yarn that's long enough for me to sew together my other side of the hat. So I'm just pulling that string through my tapestry needle, and now I'm going to take the other sides of the hat and put my needle through the loops here and pulling my string through, but not all the way because we want to leave some yarn so that we can weave in this end later, like so. And then we're going to put the needle back through the same loops to create a loop with the string, and then we're going to just put the needle through that loop we just created to create a knot, and this will secure the ends together. And we're just going to sew by putting the needle through the loops and repeating that along the entire edge. So just through the loops on both sides and pulling the string through. Okay, so now I'm just sewing in my last few loops and pulling that through, and I'm going to create another knot like we did in the beginning by putting my needle through that loop and tightening. And that's it for the end. And now, since my string is still attached, I'm going to weave in my ends. So all of the ends that are not weaved in, we're just going to do that all now, so we don't have to worry about it later. Now I'm done weaving all my ends, and I'm just going to turn my hat right side out because, as I said before, it was inside out. And now we're going to attach our second color, and I usually like to attach it on the seam part here. And what I do is we're going to put our hook in where we want to attach it, and I like to attach it by making a slip knot with my yarn that I want to attach. And we're going to attach it by putting that slip knot on the hook and pulling it through. Then we're going to chain up 2, and we're going to half double crochet all along the edge of the hat. So I'm just half double crocheting and the stitch is next to it, and while I'm doing this I'm also weaving in my ends so I don't have to worry about it later on. So now I'm just continuing my last few stitches and half double crocheting in them. And once I reach the end, I'm going to slip stitch in the second chain we created in the beginning. So just slip stitching there to connect our ends together. After doing that, you're going to want to find out where you're going to be putting the string part. So in order to do that, you need to count 34 stitches from where we ended off there. And now you're going to take your stitch marker and mark that stitch. So now we're going back to where we ended off our last round and attaching our hook there. And we're going to turn the hat so it's facing this way. And now we're going to slip stitch in 2 stitches to the left. So that's the first stitch to the left, and then we're going to slip stitch in the next stitch, which is to the left of that stitch. So just slip stitching in that next stitch right there and pulling up a loop and then pulling it through. now we're going to start creating the string part, and in order to do that, we're going to chain 41 plus 2. Now I'm just doing my last few chains, and I'm going to half double crochet in the second chain from the hook, so right there, and pull up the string and then half double crochet. And I'm just going to half double crochet all the way down the chain and continue doing it, and I should have 41 stitches by the end of the chain. Now I reached the end of my chain, and I'm just going to do it in the last few stitches, and then the last stitch, and then we're going to slip stitch into the stitch that's next to where we attach on the left. So right where my finger is pointing is where we're going to slip stitch, and we're going to do one slip stitch in that stitch and also the next one to the left of it. So that's the first one, and then here is the second stitch. And once we do that, we're going to turn our work and chain 2 and half double crochet in every stitch all the way down to the end of the row. So I just finished my row here, and I am going to chain 2 and turn it over, and then just continue half double crocheting all the way down the row. So I finished my row here, and I am going to now attach this part with a slip stitch to my hat. So I'm just going right in the stitch next to it on the left there and slip stitching. Now I am going to chain 1, and then we're going to be slip stitching all the way along the edge to the stitch before the stitch we put the stitch marker in. Now I've reached my last slip stitch that I want to put my hook in, and I'm going to do that right before the stitch markers. So this stitch here, slip stitch, and then we're going to make a chain of 41 plus 2 chains. So all the way down we're doing 41 plus 2 chains. So the same as before, we're going to half double crochet in this chain here, and then we're just going to half double crochet all the way back down the chain, exactly the same as before. And when you reach the end here, you're going to slip stitch in that stitch where the stitch marker is, and then you can go ahead and remove your stitch marker because you don't need it now. And you're going to also slip stitch in the next stitch to the left of that, right here where my finger is, and slip stitch into that. Then you're going to chain 2 and turn it over. Then you're going to just continue half double crocheting all the way down the row here until the end. Now I'm at the end of my row, and I'm just going to chain 2 and turn my work over And then we're going to do one more row crocheting half double crochets all the way down the row. So now I've finished my row and I'm going to slip stitch in this stitch right here next to where we slip stitched before, and chain 1, and I'm going to fasten off by cutting that and pulling my yarn through, and now I'm just leaving in all the remaining ends, and then I'm going to cut my excess yarn, and now your hat is done. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you love your new hat. Please let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and also tag me on Instagram if you made the hat, and please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Bye!